And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review.
A few years ago, Martin Wallace came out with A Few Acres of Snow. It was a very interesting game in that it took deck building into a war scene. Now he's come out with his second version of it, Mythotopia. This one has the deck building, it has the war aspects, it has fantasy aspects, and now it adds multiplayer, more than just a two-player game, it adds multiplayer. So let's take a look at Mythotopia and see how it plays. In Mythotopia, you have a board where you're going to be fighting along it. At the beginning of the game, there are tiles for building cities, castles, and roads. There's also going to be 4 random cards put out. As you can see, there's 10 of them. You're going to put 4 of them out in the game. I've put a few more to show you a few examples. The game will end when 4 of the 7 sections here have been emptied of their victory point tokens and someone is ahead in victory points and claims a victory. On your turn, at the beginning of the game also, you will get cards to show which provinces you are in, and for each province you're in, you'll put a town in that province and you'll get the card, which will go into your deck, including your individual cards, and those cards have different symbols on them that you will use throughout the game. There's money symbols, there's army symbols, there's brick symbols, and there's food symbols. And each province has at least one of those. There are also a bunch of special upgrade cards that come in the game. And these upgrade cards, you'll have 16 of them in a pool that could be used throughout the game. And you'll be able to draft those as one of your actions as well. Once you put all your pieces on the board, you will have different provinces. And the provinces you have at the beginning will just have towns in them, but eventually you can build roads, you can put boats out, you can put armies into them, and you can fight. In the game you have different things, like in this one we have Lord of the Isles. You're trying to, if you get all 3 of this island, you get 3 victory points. If you get both of this island, you get 2. Here be dragons. If there's dragons, there would be, in addition to what everyone gets, 5 of this. Other cards will come out, dragons will come out, and if you kill the dragons, you're going to get points. Same thing with the rune stones. If you go to a space with a rune stone, you'll get points. There's Master of the Seas, which if you have ships in different sea areas, you're going to get points. Patronage, so you could just pay points as an action to get these. Citadel, if there's a citadel, you'll have a citadel piece, and if you attack someone else's citadel and capture it, you'll get points. There's also other ones here for if you spend extra when you build a road, if you spend extra when you build a city counter, if you take control of a province, or if you defend the province. So there's attacking and defending ones. Each of these comes with a different amount of tokens, as you can see. So 4 of them would be in the game. In this case, let's just say these 4, plus the 3 basic ones. When 7 of those fill up, the game will be over. Once you have your hand, you're going to take the cards you have plus your 4 special cards, you're going to shuffle them together to form a deck, and you're going to draw 5 cards. That's your hand limit. Then you have a bunch of actions you can do, and the actions are all listed on your action card, and it also explains what you need to do in the game. So your different actions you can do is you can invade a province. In order to invade a province, you must play a province card that you're invading from. So if I was invading from Peonid into Camarine here, let's say I had armies, then what I would do is I would play a Peonid card. But if I also had Custis, because I have a road here, I could play a Custis card. So if I had either one of those cards, Custis or Peonid, I can play one of them to invade. So that would be the first card I would play. Let's say Custis here, or Peonid. I would play one of those cards first. Then I must play an army card or an army symbol, as you can see. And for each army symbol, I will get 1 army from the armies I have. Right now, I only have a certain amount of armies. You could recruit more, but let's just say I did 4. So I would put 4 armies here. Then you have to pay food. You have to have 1 food that you have to pay in order to invade. So once you pay the food, then your armies can make it in. If you have to go overseas, like if I invaded from Geopigna over, I would also have to use a ship card. As you can see, you have ship cards. I'd have to use a ship card as well. And for each sea zone that you cross, you'd have to use a separate ship card. So if I can invade all the way from here through 2 sea zones if I wanted to as well. When you invade, you put it in. Then the defender has a few chances. Well, first of all, you can't invade across mountains. The second thing is if they have a defensive symbol in there, they get 1 extra defense. If they have a city in there, they get 2 extra defense. And if you have to cross over a hill, so there's mountains, here's hills. If you have to cross over a hill, you have to pay an extra food because your armies get tired as they cross over the hills. Once you invade, you cannot actually finish the invasion until your next turn, and you have to do it as your first action of your 2 actions on a turn. And that action is called End a War. In order to end a war, you must have a military advantage in the region. Now, as a defender, you could end the war also, or as the attacker. When you end the war, you say, I've got the military advantage, I end the war. So it's going to be a build up, a build up, a build up, and then eventually someone's going to end the war when they've got the pieces that they need. Because you have different actions. One is place army. If you place army, you could place armies in a region. So if I play an army card and I was red, I could put more armies in there to defend myself. You could also remove armies if you want to remove them back to your supply so you could use them again. Because until you hire more, you'll be left with those armies. The next thing you could do is you could place ships out on the board. Or you could remove ships. You could end the war, like I said, that only could be the first action. Then you could buy armies or ships. So you have more armies that you can get during the game. And you can buy the armies or buy the ships, and they cost gold, and when you buy them, you could get more into your supply to be able to put out onto the board. You could draft an improvement card. Now, these improvement cards are really good because they kind of give you the special actions. As you can see, there's another army card. There's special cards here like Ranger, Reserve, Hills become open borders, Mountains become hills, and you get 1 strength military when attacking or defending. There's another build card. Counselor is a free action. Discard cards to draw the same number. You know, that's a way to burn through your hand. Portal, substitute for province card when invading. You may invade any province on the board, so that's kind of like a warp. You got Marauders. Remove 1 army counter from 1 province. You could do that as a free action. So that's a way to win a battle as you play the Marauders card, remove an army. Limes, if it's in your reserve, it's +1 military strength when defending. General, substitute for province when building or invading only. A merchant, you can change a resource to another if you kind of need the right resources. Hero will break ties in a war in your favor, so if it's a tie, you could win the war. Another market card, which basically gives you a bunch of resources. A reserve army that could be in your reserve. Another ship, watermill, which basically doubles the resource gained from another card, so that's like builds up your resources quickly. Philosopher lets you draw 3 improvement cards from the deck, which is the rest, and you get to choose 1 to keep, so it's kind of a random extra card. Cavalry, if it's in your reserve, you get +1 military while invading. Diplomacy, pay 1 gold to stop a war, so you could end the war by paying a gold. Mystic allows you to pay a gold to take a card of your choice from your discard pile, so you don't have to wait to reshuffle your deck and you can get a card back. You can use mercenaries, so you could pay 1 gold to place 2 mercenary counters, which are these, and you can play them with something else when you're attacking. Warehouse, it increases your reserve by 2, where you could store extra cards to help you. Queen increases your hand by 1, so instead of 5-card hand, you'd have a 6-card hand. Farming, once per turn you can play any card and have it count as food. Quarry, once per turn you can play a card of stone. The gold is once for gold. Providence lets you draw 2 cards, so that builds up your hand quickly. Levies, once per turn you can play any card and regard it as having an army. Alchemist, exchange 1 victory for a 2 victory, or a 2 victory for a 3 victory from the spare stock, so you could upgrade your victory points with it. Scribe, when you take a victory point, you can take it from the spare stock if you wish. So if one of those cards over here runs out, you can take it from the spare stock as well. So when the cards run out of victory points, you can still get victory points for those doing those actions. And militia, it's a free action. Add 1 army to your available stock, so that gives you armies without having to buy them. So these are very powerful cards, and you could draft 1 improvement card as your action. You only can do that once each turn. So in a 4-player game, most likely each person will have drafted 4 of them into their hand, including the cities. There's also neutral cities at the beginning of the game, so you can attack neutral cities. They have a strength of 3 as opposed to a strength of what the other person has. So you could take neutral cities, which will also give you victory points, because each city on the board that you have will give you 3 victory points, plus what you get here. And obviously, at some point when these piles run out, you want to have the most victory points in order to win the game. Another action you could do is place cards in your reserve. Some of those special cards can go in your reserve, which sit right under here, based on how many cities you've gotten out on the board by building cities, which cost 2 brick to build if you use your build card. Depending how many cities you have on the board, you could have more cards in your reserve. So eventually, if you get all 4 cities on the board, you could have 6 cards in your reserve. You can also discard cards as your action. Discard as many as you want to draw a new hand. You could also remove 1 or 2 cards from your deck, so you can cull your deck, and you could throw out cities that you own and you still own the city, but if someone takes it over, they will get the card from you. Just like if they beat you in a war, they will get the card from you, but they could also get it from the outside. If you throw one of your cards out, you could throw one of your starting cards out, and later on you could use the draft 1 improvement card to get it back. In addition to that, you could do any of the actions like build ship or build, which lets you build different things. You could build roads, you could build those. So when you build, not only do you build, you get the victory point for building. You can do the patronage, which I showed you. You can pass as an action if you want to, even though I don't see a reason to. And of course, the most important action would be ending the game. Like I said, when 4 of these are completely empty of victory points, and you have the most victory points at the beginning of your turn, you could end the game. Now, there's one catch on ending the game. If there are still battles going on the board, you have to be able to win the game after every battle goes off. So if people are attacking you and you're losing a bunch of spaces, you can't end the game unless you know that you have enough victory points to still win. So it's a tricky end, and people will be attacking each other a lot, but eventually you'll get to a point where you've overpowered everyone else and you can claim that victory. After that, as usual in the game, after you do your 2 actions, the last thing you're going to do is draw back up to 5 cards. So you will be cycling through a deck like any other normal deck builder, other than your deck becomes the cities that you've attacked on the board, plus special cards that you've taken during the game. I really like this one. I mean, I loved Few Acres of Snow, and I think this one is even better. I love the multiplayer aspect. I love the fighting aspect, that you're not just fighting one person, but you're fighting multiple people. In a way, it reminds me of a deck building version of Small World. And you have the same thing where you're trying to get different territories on the map, you're trying to move around the map, but you also have the variable different powers, because each territory gives you a slightly different power, and the cards that you're drafting, the improvement cards, each give you a slightly different power. So everyone's going to be slightly different in their decks as they build them, but imagine Small World as a deck builder, and that's what you get in this game. Yes, the end game can be tediously long, and I'm gonna talk about that right now, is that you have to actually win and claim victory at the beginning of your turn. So if you're ahead and you're ready to claim victory, everyone else will beat on you for a turn and beat you down where you won't be able to claim victory. So then someone else might get to that point and everyone's going to beat on them. So the end game might take a while and go in cycles. Yes, that is a distraction from the game, but the game itself is so wonderful that I disregard any lengthy time for the end game for the actual meat of the game. And you putting together a deck builder with a multiplayer game, a territory attacking game, he's done a fabulous job with this. I'm going to give it an awesomeness rating of 8, and the reason why is because I know that A Handful of Stars is coming out soon, and I want to reserve the better rating for the improvements that I understand he made on this due to the end game. But if you like deck builders and you like war games in any way, or games that you attack, or games like Small World where you're trying to take over territories, then you will absolutely love Mythotopia. It's the fantasy setting, it's the deck building, it's everything. This is deck building done right in a game with a map.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.